What up, everybody? Welcome to the live stream. We've got a huge day for Bitcoin today. Today was the B Word conference, demystifying the myths around Bitcoin. This was there was a huge talk earlier today. I put the link below if you missed it. Jack Dorsey, Elon Musk, and Cathie Wood talking about Bitcoin. And this actually inspired me to make a bunch of moves in my own portfolio. And so I kind of wanted to bring this up and just go live and tell you what my thoughts were. I mean, just at a high level, first of all, seeing these three people come together, three of the most powerful people in the world, especially when you consider forward-thinking disruptive technology. Cathie Wood running ARK Invest, the most forward-thinking investment firm out there, crushing it. Saw Tesla putting up amazing returns. Jack Dorsey running Twitter and Square, two of the most relevant companies in the world. Then, of course, Elon Musk running Tesla and SpaceX. I mean, these are powerful people advocating on behalf of Bitcoin. So much to cover here, but I mean, the long story short is my conviction in Bitcoin, like, I almost feel like I woke up after watching this talk and I was like, I love Bitcoin. I've been following it for like 8 years. Like, why do I not have more money in this? Why is my crypto portfolio scattered with like Unisocks and Uniswap, which I love. They're both cool assets, but I sold both of those, moved it all into Bitcoin. I don't have any cash, so I had to move around a bunch of my other, I didn't sell my, so, okay, I'm trying to cover this all right now, but I basically moved, like my crypto holdings as follows were Bitcoin, Ethereum, Unisoc, Dogecoin, Unisoc, Uniswap, Dogecoin. I sold all my Unisoc, all my Uniswap, put it into Bitcoin. Now Bitcoin's still now even by further my largest crypto position. And my thesis on this, really simple. We need a new way to transfer value in the digital economy, internet native currency, the market cap of gold alone as a store of value inflation hedge. Even if we don't have peer-to-peer cash, $8 trillion, you get a 10x in Bitcoin. Even if it's just a store of value, if it becomes a bigger part of the payments and financial system and fiat, overtaking really fiat and banking, we're looking at tens of trillions of dollars of potential. We're talking about a 20 to 30 to 50 to 100x upside in Bitcoin from today's prices. Right now, Bitcoin's network is valued at about $600 billion. That's the market cap or network value, which is the amount of tokens in circulation, times that price per token, about 20 million, times about 30,000 price per Bitcoin. That gets you to 600 billion. So I think this is still a bet where we're looking at, and what's crazy to me is the fundamentals of Bitcoin have changed, right? Like the stagnation fallacy, like Bitcoin's this weird quirky thing on the internet. When I started, it was sort of fringe, it was out there, it was crazy. And now to see people like Elon Musk buying it for Tesla, putting it on Tesla's balance sheet, to see Square buying it, putting it on their balance sheet, to see this talk come together, and these companies to start building around the ecosystem of Bitcoin, to me, this is increasing the first principles intrinsic value of Bitcoin significantly. And I just kind of had this wake up moment today of like, Gally, what are you doing? Like, you love Bitcoin, you know this is the future. Yes, I had a Bitcoin position. It was my biggest crypto thing. It's the second biggest thing or third biggest thing in my portfolio, but besides Tesla and SpaceX. Also, we found out that SpaceX owns Bitcoin today, which is, we got to get to that later. But I was like, man, my conviction I love Uniswap and Unisocks, but my conviction, and this is a theory I've been dabbling with a lot, it's like upside potential times conviction in that asset. And my conviction in Bitcoin's never been higher. Jack Dorsey runs Square, right? This is the world's largest payments, one of the world's largest payments and fintech companies. They have Cash App with 30 million users growing like crazy. So Jack Dorsey to me, and he's like a crazy hacker, sort of altruistic coder guy. He's not even really like a CEO or businessman. He's more of an engineer and computer scientist. And so when you see him praise Bitcoin like this, not only does that validate the technical prowess of Bitcoin, but he can literally manifest the adoption of Bitcoin on such a big level that I think this is going to be a huge fundamental catalyst. And so recently, Jack Dorsey and Square have been talking about this new hardware wallet they're going to build for Bitcoin. There was a lot of interesting discussion on the talk about having your private keys or not. And I'm Googling, I'm like, man, even though I love crypto, like I'm a crypto noob, I'm like, Coinbase, I'm pretty sure doesn't give you your private keys. So I Google it and it's like, they don't. Like Coinbase, you're basically trusting them like a bank. Square and Jack Dorsey and Elon were sort of coming together that they want to give people the ability to have their own private key, control their crypto, and not be sort of subject to a third party. And so Jack is building that solution. And so I just feel like the pace of innovation that's bubbling up in this $1 to $2 trillion crypto ecosystem is just flying at about 1,000,000 miles an hour, and the pace of innovation in this fiat currency system is basically stalling at zero. And so I see an inevitable inflection where the world's value, or, I love as Elon says, like this information system for labor allocation is going to switch from the fiat world into this crypto and Bitcoin world. And so that's why I love I personally sort of have this, scattered approach, like not a Bitcoin maximalist, not an Ethereum maximalist, not a Doge maximalist, believe all of those could work and grow in tandem in the future. But yeah, okay, I'm getting sidetracked here. But There was a couple notes that I wanted to pinpoint from the talk. The first is Jack Dorsey says if Bitcoin was created before Twitter, Twitter probably wouldn't have the dependency on the advertising model. And this is something that's really interesting. You think about Jack Dorsey, like Square's integrated Bitcoin heavily. Twitter is not integrated Bitcoin at all. Like, why don't we have Bitcoin payments in Twitter? To me, this is like an obvious no-brainer, right? Well, I think a big reason of that they mentioned on the call is like, if you're going to go something like Twitter that's global and you have all these payments that want to go cross borders, right now, the way the world is set up, you have to set up all these different payments and deal with all these local regulations to deal with all these different currencies. It's a huge friction on global innovation. And so this is like such a simple concept, but it's like, yeah, we have global trade. Like, why did the trillions of dollars of Forex market exist? Just taking a toll to switch to different, fiat currencies is total BS. We should have one currency on the internet, and that'll be a huge sort of lever to pull for global growth. And so I think, and then Jack Dorsey goes on to mention that he's working on a decentralized social media protocol called Blue Sky, which sounds like a project that's like a decentralized Twitter. Will it be a part of Twitter? Will it be its own thing? Will it just be its own crypto network? I don't know, but I think Jack Dorsey is setting up, and there's a lot of behind the scenes work to essentially enable some sort of Bitcoin-like payment layer on top of Twitter. That was a huge thing that I took away from this. So in terms of catalysts for Bitcoin, I'm like, oh my God, like Jack Dorsey is pushing this onto Square, onto Twitter. I just think there's so much potential here. And yeah, anyway, I just think that's going to be a huge catalyst for Bitcoin and the adoption. And then Elon Musk goes on for this other tidbit, which is like negative interest rates in Europe. I thought that was a really funny story. And he jokes about how Tesla can even move a bunch of its cash that's literally just losing money in Europe because they have negative interest rates into Bitcoin. I don't know if he's actually going to do that or not, but I thought that was interesting. And then in another note here, talking about how do we get Bitcoin to go from still sort of this weird thing that's not really adopted in a lot of normalized ways. And Elon pressures Jack Dorsey to start allowing Twitter advertisers to pay in crypto, because he makes this really interesting point that just like Tesla's allowing people to pay in crypto, you're basically having more off ramps to what you can do with that crypto increases the value of that. Like, the more places I can spend my Bitcoin, the higher utility that crypto asset has. And so Jack Dorsey allowing you to spend it on Twitter ads, allowing you to buy a Tesla with it is all off ramps for the Bitcoin ecosystem that are making it much stronger. And in that lens, another big thing they touch on the talk was Bitcoin's UI. And so, and I love that the design of Bitcoin. I love how Jack Dorsey starts by saying like the Bitcoin protocol is beautifully designed. Like the science, the computer geekiness is and the actual code that runs the system is beautifully designed, but the UI is not. And this is something that I think needs tremendous work. And I think is a fascinating way to look at Bitcoin is like, we need these, and he even shouts out this thing called Moon Wallet, M-U-U-N, that's a Bitcoin wallet. And so I think this is the biggest space. And he specifically says like wallets are what we need to increase Bitcoin adoption. And so I think there's a tremendous amount, and where I'm focused is innovation in the ways to use Bitcoin, to send Bitcoin, to open it up to the masses. Like these crypto networks are, these complex decentralized networks with a bunch of letters and numbers, all these new things you have to learn. I think the biggest sort of like fulcrum security in this space is the equity in the technologies that are building the on-ramps to it. That's why I'm obsessed with Rainbow Wallet, which is one of my investments that's an Ethereum wallet, because they're building the beautiful UI that lets you on-ramp into Ethereum. And I think single-handedly, that kind of technology could increase the adoption of Ethereum, could make it easier, could make it fun, could make it better to interact with different applications. And I think those will be like these fulcrum securities that not only go up way in value as little companies and startups themselves, but also just turbocharge adoption of the network. And so I guess my point is, taking a step back, this moment today is like, wow, like the amount of work, the amount of effort, the amount of, economic momentum that is pushing the Bitcoin ecosystem forward has never been higher. And that is what has got me so bullish. And I think my confidence that Bitcoin is going to be this decentralized global currency is just continually like increasing at a rapid rate. And you think about the institutionalization of Bitcoin, how it's going to integrate into portfolio theory. Everybody's going to need to own a little bit of crypto. I just think the entire world is so behind that. And then you think about what Cathie Wood said about how we have to change the accounting. This is a huge thing. And this is like why you as the little investor actually have an edge on Bitcoin. This is why I love things like Bitcoin and Tesla, because the institutions relate to them and the little guy was early to them. So there's this thing where like Tesla and all these companies, if they want to buy Bitcoin, it's an intangible asset on their books. So if it goes up, they can't mark it up. If it goes down, they have to mark it down. And so all of a sudden, all these big companies, and I know this is what's happening at like Apple and Facebook and Amazon, is like they're tripping because they're gonna, if they want to add a lot of Bitcoin to their balance sheet, all of a sudden it's gonna do these wild swings of the intangible asset line, and they're gonna have to, sort of fudge up their quarterly reporting. And so they're OCD about accounting. I know this sounds ridiculous, but this is actually how the business world works. mega corporations OCD about accounting and worrying about what their shareholders are going to think about accounting, which is the biggest fallacy ever, that shareholders actually give a shit about your GAAP financials. No, they're like reading through that, of course. But that is what is holding up the institutionalization of Bitcoin. So this is what I think is inevitably going to fall, whether it's the regulations change, whether companies decide that they don't care about the intangible asset swings. I think we're about to have mega institutional adoption of Bitcoin. And you think about what's happening with layer 2. You think about what Jack Dorsey's trying to do to build an ecosystem around Bitcoin. I just think it's so crystal clear to me that like having these billionaires that control the most powerful companies manifest the global adoption of Bitcoin is incredibly fascinating. Now, let's get to the energy consumption of Bitcoin. I watched Nick Carter's talk. Before that, also shout out to Nick Carter. I really want to get him on Hyperchange and I need to follow up with him. So he's incredible. And his Bitcoin talk about the energy of Bitcoin is just super well spoken, just an amazing, and I'm like watching this dude, Nick Carter, I'm watching, Jack Dorsey and Elon Musk and Cathie Wood like talk about Bitcoin, talk about its amazing potential. And I'm like, these people know what's up. Like, I want to be on their side. Because, like, when I think about hit the fast forward button on the future, I'm going to be like, oh, that Nick Carter dude was totally, like, of course he's dead on the money. Of course this guy is spitting facts. So it's just inevitable when you see these like incredibly smart, young, forward-thinking thought leaders who are literally building the future talk about Bitcoin. It just got me so inspired. And the way he was framing the energy equation is like, look, if you assume Bitcoin's doing nothing good and that we're moving 10 to 12, $20 billion a day, there's $600 billion of economic momentum that's choosing to be stored in this network. If you ignore that, then you're like, oh my gosh, we're using so much energy for nothing. But it's all about what you think of as Bitcoin, like, is it worth the energy? Right now, our entire way we move money requires energy. So you have to contrast it. It's like, turning your lights on in your house requires energy, but it makes you happier. So that's just the way that humanity works. And I think generally, it's kind of a backward thinking approach to say that things that consume energy are bad. It's like humanity's, appetite for energy is only going to increase in perpetuity. That's just a fact. Like, everything that's dope, that's new, that comes out, AI, robots, going to Mars, going to space, any dope new technology, your super fast Tesla, like whatever, electric planes, like whatever dope thing you want, Neuralink, like it's probably going to increase the electricity demands of the world. So we need to figure out, better and cheaper ways to produce electricity. And so, first of all, Bitcoin is only consuming like, I think it's 0.2% of 0.2 or 0.3% of global energy. Or that's electricity, less of global energy. And these are stats that actually I'll put a link to Nick Carter's slides below because he has incredible slides about this energy consumption of Bitcoin. And I think he does an amazing job of explaining this sort of unique energy buyer property that Bitcoin has, where all of a sudden I can arbitrage and tap into the price of energy markets by mining Bitcoin with these ASICs. And so this is a huge sort of equalizer to the playing field of accelerating the, and I've mentioned this before on the channel, but I think it's like, I don't know, I feel like people don't get it. So it's like, okay, I set up my renewable energy project. I have all these solar panels. They're producing all this energy, but now it's like, oh my gosh, what do I do with this energy? Like I got to sell it back to the grid, but they're beefing with me. So they're not going to give me a fair rate. Now, all of a sudden I have what's called a unique energy buyer. And this is a paper that Cathie Wood and Jack Dorsey wrote that she even brought up in the talk, which was crazy. She's like, Elon, did you see that paper? He's like, yeah, of course I saw it. Here's your problem with it. Like, oh my God, it was so cool. But so Bitcoin is actually accelerating the ROI of these renewable energy projects. So Bitcoin, even though it consumes energy, is actually accelerating the adoption of renewables in a weird way and could be in the long run sort of like offsetting its energy consumption maybe and more with this effect. And so the entire way that Bitcoin, like I'm thinking a lot about this invest in the future you believe in, right? Like Tesla, that was my hugest big investment. Like they're getting us to clean energy, ironically, that we're talking about this, and electric cars. And that made the world so much better. And there was such a mission behind it. So with Bitcoin, is it like, oh my gosh, you're just supporting this like greedy Ponzi scheme, and the people who are in Bitcoin are pumping it because they want to get rich. Like, how is this actually making the world better, bro? Like, we're just burning a bunch of energy to, stabilize this monetary network we don't need. I just think that's such a short-sighted and bad way to look at it. And I love the points in their talk about sort of the equity of the world, like trying to get payments to other countries, remittances. When I go and I'm working in the US, but I want to send money back home, how many fees am I paying? How long does that money take? Like, I think it's like, and I think Jack Dorsey does a really interesting way of describing this. It's like lots of like little ways to take out the friction in growth and money that I think actually lead to a lot of inequity in the world. Like, I'll just get to the point. Like, Jack Dorsey's like, Bitcoin could lead to world peace. That's like, and I love Jack Dorsey, such a like altruistic, I feel like he's like a monk or something, right? Like, I don't know. He's just awesome. But so he says that, but he's not joking. He's like, this sounds crazy, but there's so much inequity in our world because of poverty, because people don't have financial services, because the banking system is sort of set up and unfair, and like the way the banks work. I love that it's like monopolies that can never fail because they just get bailed out by governments. Like I think it's really hard to like put your finger on exactly how much destruction is happening because of the current financial system on a social level and in just terms of like a wealth distribution level. But I think that's a huge thing to consider. And Bitcoin is building this sort of from the ground up, decentralized, accessible financial system. You know, if you're in a third world country where the currency is accelerating 100%, like this is a real problem. And Bitcoin could be such an opportunity to not have to rely on your government's current crazy, weird fiat currency and have this unique alternative. And so I think it is in some ways to me really inspiring, this theory that Bitcoin could bring so much like, you know, peace to the world and could sort of change this more equitable financial system. And you think about what Elon Musk is doing with Starlink. This is savage. Elon Musk is like, okay, well, a big thing about the crypto networks and opportunity is how do we get internet for you to participate in these networks? Well, Starlink is going to build gigabit internet for the world. So all of a sudden now, this is what's amazing. Like energy turns into money because of Bitcoin as long as I have access to the internet. So the biggest problem there is the access to the internet. But Elon Musk is about to solve that. So now I'm like, okay, you asked me, let's get back to why I'm so hyped and I'm putting all my money in Bitcoin because, and I didn't sell any Tesla stock, if those are wondering. Like, yeah. But so now Tesla and Bitcoin are my two basic investments, but I was like, man, like this is like Elon Musk building Starlink and making it easy to tap into Bitcoin and do Bitcoin mining from anywhere is huge. And then you also have Elon Musk that's pressuring them. That's like, okay, Tesla's going to not accept Bitcoin payments until a bigger portion of the grid goes renewable, or a bigger portion of Bitcoin goes renewable. So he's using his political clout to push Bitcoin to be more renewable and say, miners, you got to audit it. And man, I just think that's so underappreciated, and Elon deserves so much props for trying to like push the Bitcoin narrative forward. And the other big thing about Bitcoin is like people don't like, oh, it's all coal mining in China, which it was a lot of, which is really interesting that like there was so much coal sort of like from these two provinces in like one near Mongolia, one in China, that were doing a lot of the mining for Bitcoin. We're using basically all coal. So at some points, over 50% of the energy used to secure the hash rate of Bitcoin was coal up until very recently. Now that's changing. They're switching the dynamics. The mix is going a lot more renewable for Bitcoin. And as renewables, I feel like we're at such a lucky point in the simulation where renewable energy is the cheapest way to get energy. Like if you want to get energy in the cheapest way, it's setting up a new renewable project now. So that's huge. And that means all these new projects that are going to be, you know, if it was coal was the cheapest way, we'd be screwed because everybody would be building coal plants to mine Bitcoin, new coal plants. But now they're just building new solar plants because they're cheaper. And so I feel like so just like fortunate that solar plants are the cheapest form of energy because Bitcoin's going to accelerate that. And so I don't know. I just think we're onto something huge here. And you think about how big this idea of money is, like, I don't know. I think people get sort of wrapped up into like the dollar and money and currency as sort of this bad thing and this kind of weird thing we take for granted. Like to me, it's just a technology we all use. Like if it was invented 100 years ago, it's probably time to disrupt it. 1913, they invented the Fed. It's 100 years old. Like it was before the internet. Like the internet exists. We need payments and currency that's native to the internet, that's built into this. I just think that's incredible. And on the back end, getting back to that China point, now the Bitcoin network and what Jack Dorsey and Elon were talking about is the decentralization of the network. If we can get away from lumping it in China and all these places and having sort of centralized mining power, and you know Starlink helps decentralize the network and bring more nodes online, like to me the Bitcoin network is only getting stronger by the day. It's only getting more decentralized. It's only getting more renewable. There's only more people building on it. There's only more exciting stuff happening. And so you know, the next innovation in Bitcoin UI that adds another 50 million users is waiting to happen. And when that happens, I think the price of Bitcoin is going to go way up. You know, we're only any day away now from another big company saying they put Bitcoin on their balance sheet because they finally got it through their accounting process. Like, I think the amount of incredible catalysts for Bitcoin are through the roof right now. And I don't know. And I love what Cathie Wood and Jack Dorsey were saying also about the humanitarian side of Bitcoin. Sorry, I'm all over the place. Is how taking the friction out of the global financial system could be a mega catalyst for growth in humanity. And like, you know, giving all these people, the next 3 billion people that are going to come online with Starlink, giving them this internet native payment system that's already built into it. And Elon Musk is even saying he's been scheming with Tesla to have like your excess waste heat to go to mine crypto. And you just press a button. Is it Bitcoin? Is it ETH? Is it Doge? And all of a sudden with my excess energy, I'm mining Bitcoin. Like, oh my gosh, there's so many opportunities and ways that this could happen. But okay, so that is what it is. I'm moving I moved a bunch of my whack little crypto stuff that I accumulated from dabbling in who knows what crypto stuff into Bitcoin because my conviction in this has never been higher. I think we're going from a $600 billion asset to a $6 trillion asset soon. Does it take 1 year? Does it take 2 years? Does it take 4 years? I don't know, but I don't think it's stopping at 6 trillion. I think we're going to tens of trillions of dollars. I think the system of fiat currency, of banks that are monopolies that get bailed out by the government, that have a 1 to 10 fractional reserve system that are backed by the Fed, is just this weird. It's just ripe for disruption, and Bitcoin's doing it. And I think the biggest sort of, I guess the gist of this whole talk, and I'm going to end it on this, is like, or I'll open it up to questions, is Bitcoin's fundamentals are improving. The first principles of any crypto network are how many people are using it, how many people know about it, and how many people are accepting this cryptocurrency. And so I think all of those are improving greatly. More and more people are using Bitcoin. More and more people know about it. It's been around longer, so the technology's validated more, and there's more places to spend it than ever. And now you have the smartest people in the world. Thank you, DJ Medusa, for the super chat. Woo! Is increasing as well. So it's just like Jack Dorsey building this hardware wallet is planting the seed for, the next 50 million people to join Bitcoin. And he's already scheming on it. He's already telling you he's going to do it. He already is like this ultra powerful billionaire. Then you got Elon Musk saying like, yeah, I want Bitcoin to succeed. Let's push him to do renewable. Cathie Wood is going to incept every financial institution manager to start putting it on their thing. Like, to me, it's inevitable. Like, I don't even want to say there's a 30% chance Bitcoin hits the inflation head gold. I think there's like a 75% chance that Bitcoin disrupts and displaces what gold was in the financial system. And I'd say there's like a 50% chance that it goes like 10x bigger than that, becomes a much bigger piece of the payments ecosystem. So yeah, like I think it's sounding crazy, but I think Bitcoin, to me, 60 trillion in fiat, whatever, not out of the question. Even though this is a $600 billion asset with network value, we could still be having 100x potential in the next 30 years or whatever. And I just think there's another big idea with Bitcoin, which is like, why do we have this burden of what to do with our wealth? Like, you think about when I talk about how we can improve equity and evenness and world peace in the world, because even if you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, no matter what you're doing, if you work in a supermarket, if you are driving Uber, okay, so you make all this money, but now its value's decreasing. If there's one thing that we know that's happening, yeah, PVO, positive vibes only. If there's one thing that we know that's happening, it's like the purchasing power of the dollar goes down. That is just facts. And that's why everybody's forced to invest. Am I buying real estate? Am I buying stocks? Am I buying crypto? Like, I don't know. Like, it's a full-time job to manage your capital. You work so hard to make your money. Why do you have to have another full-time job just to figure out what to do with it to make sure you don't lose it? That's because our system, our information system for allocating that value of labor sucks, and it's leaching away all this value constantly. It's like a bathtub with just a horrible leak. And that's why everyone's trying to get their water out of the fiat bathtub to invest in stocks and this. And so imagine if our financial system had a bedrock without that leak. That's kind of this theory of Bitcoin, and it would be sort of a deflationary economic system where the value of Bitcoin is always going up in perpetuity, and all you're doing is you're working. You're like, okay, I got my paycheck. It goes into Bitcoin. I don't have to worry about this erosion of value. It's actually a natural appreciation of value. And so how much time does that unlock? How much stress does that unlock? How many people aren't doing what they want, aren't as sustainable as they want because of financial limitations? So I think there's a huge... we're scratching the surface on such a big idea here, such a revolutionary moment in the history of finance, in the history of world economics. And I just think this is the time, bro. The internet's here. We need a global currency. Bitcoin is the leading one. This is a tens of trillions of dollar opportunity. Right now it's priced at 600 billion, but the leaders of the world are going to push it forward and make it happen. And I think my biggest thing that's interesting to see about this is governments. Like, I think governments are honestly, like, their intelligence and ability to make strategic long-term moves, at least our government, is low. And so how are they going to be able to adapt with the dollar? Like, are we going to keep accelerating the printing press of the US dollar? Are we going to be able to, adopt Bitcoin as some sort of reserve currency? Like, if I was the Fed, if I was governments around the world, I would be acquiring Bitcoin. Like, to me, this is the FOMO game that's so interesting. Once Bitcoin is that global currency, like, why wouldn't you just buy it? Like, Tesla buying Bitcoin is such a big power move and a manifest, and you're creating the prophecy. If Apple buys Bitcoin and says we're putting a hardware wallet on every iPhone, bam, Bitcoin's worth like 8 trillion then, because they have 500 or 700 million iOS users. So I just think and then it's like, well, I put out this article in like 2013 or 2012, which is called iCoin, why Apple should open a Bitcoin bank. This is when Bitcoin was worth $20 billion network value. It's like, why didn't Apple just start buying Bitcoin and buy like 20% of Bitcoin, like 4 billion worth of Bitcoin out of 20 billion, and then like announce that, Bitcoin was on every iPhone. And then the value of Bitcoin goes up from 20 billion to 200 billion, your 4 goes to 40, and all of a sudden you just made a $36 billion profit. And, so I think this is an incentive system that is savage. And so I don't know why another big tech company isn't doing this. I think Tesla they're so open to new ideas that they move the fastest on this. But I think there's a big FOMO theory, whether it's large corporations, whether it's central banks, whether it's private individuals. There's a huge incentive to increase the adoption of Bitcoin and this FOMO theory. And so like there's this thing on Reddit, which is the okay, back to that, the Apple thing that I was talking about though. If I was Apple, what would I do right now? Tim Cook, don't work on the electric car, bro. Tesla's got that in the bag. Like, here's what you should do. You should spend $100 billion instead of buying back your own equity. It's like, bro, that's not going to go up that much. Buy Bitcoin. Buy $100 billion of Bitcoin. Actually get a good position, and then come out with what Jack Dorsey's about to come out with, which is this hardware wallet where you own your private key. Like Jack Dorsey is going to build what I think I made a moonshot a long time ago that Apple should buy Ledger, which is this super dope hardware wallet we could plug in. Like they should have done that, and now Jack Dorsey's going to do it, and Apple's missing the boat on this easy $1 trillion idea they had, but they just gave it up because they're trying to compete with Elon in the electric car. Like, to me, I just think Apple is going to go down as just having missed such a huge opportunity of your hardware device, which is your phone, or like the chip that's in our brain, but right now we hold in our hand. We call it the smartphone. That is this hardware device, which has so much potential to be our payment wallet somehow. I don't know. I just think there's a huge overlap there that Apple's missing. And so, I don't know. I think it's before long before another like huge news drops about some crazy adoption. Okay, so is there any questions here, or should I wrap this up? I mean, this is so fun. I'm so excited about Bitcoin, and I like can't wait. It's like I'm excited now about Bitcoin, about like what's gonna come out, like what news is next. What's like, when does Jack Dorsey's hardware wallet come? And yo, don't tell Coinbase this, but I'm probably about to use the Square wallet instead, because I'm gonna get my private keys, and I kind of believe in the apocalypse theory of like, bro, the apocalypse might hit. Like I kind of want my private keys. And okay, I did sell not all my Airbnb stock, but in my IRA, I sold my Airbnb stock for Square stock. Oh my God, this is killing me. I know I have like ADD FOMO with my IRA, but and this is just like a tiny amount of my portfolio, because I'm like, okay, I'm buying as much Bitcoin as I can. Did that. Square, which is building, to me, that fulcrum security of Bitcoin. Like what I say, Rainbow Wallet is for ETH. To me, Square could be for Bitcoin. So I think Square stock could go up 10x, maybe more than Bitcoin. And so I love Square stock, and I've always wanted to own it, and I love Jack Dorsey, and I think the Delta variant might slow down travel more than I was expecting. Like I was expecting the world to bounce back immediately for travel, and I think that's going to happen slower than expected. Airbnb is such an amazing company, and I still own some stock, and they're changing the world, and they make these amazing experiences, and I want to be a part of it. But Square stock, I think, is going to go up 10x in the time that Airbnb stock maybe doubles. And so, I had to make the move. Like I just felt that, and so I had to make the move. And so, yeah, I think Square stock is incredible. I'm pumped to be on board. And Square and Bitcoin, I don't know. I had to reallocate. I'm feeling good about it. I'm kind of hyped because I haven't made a big move in my portfolio for so long. Like I kind of dabble a little bit here and there and put a little this startup. I'm going to buy, 1,000 Dogecoin. Like I haven't made any big moves. And then after my portfolio video I made, I've been thinking like, man, I kind of want to make a concentrated bet. Like Bitcoin is that. I have so much conviction in Bitcoin. It pulled back. Tesla bought in. Dorsey's doing this. Cathie Wood's pushing it. Like, oh my gosh, like how do I not have more exposure? It just clicked with me today. I massively upped my exposure to Bitcoin. I didn't have cash. I just moved stuff around, but I'm really excited about it, and I'm super pumped, and I'm more confident than ever that Bitcoin accelerates the adoption of renewable energy. It is a good thing for our energy ecosystem. This is not the behemoth evil polluter that everybody makes it out to be. Yeah, and I just think that that's huge, and that we're just, even though as exciting and big as Bitcoin is right now, we're just still so early. Anyway, this is Hyperchange. Love y'all for tuning in. I don't know. I'm just hyped. This is epic. Anyway, I'll see y'all next time. I think Bitcoin's going up 10x at least in the next couple years. Remember, not financial advice, but that's just what I think. Anyway, love y'all. Have a great day. Let me know what you think in the comments, and yeah, we'll keep scheming. Peace.